so much pain, so much death.
I buried this for nearly 30 years.
Sika's interview.
After years of dating, Sika Groves and her boyfriend Dave were starting their life together in Dave's parents' basement.
We went to visit the antique store to pick up something special, something that we thought would be our own. Everybody else had given us things, so we really wanted to get something that we thought was unique and sort of said who we were. When I first saw the washstand, it just stood out because it was a classic, probably about 1870s Victorian washstand. But it was just really unique and really different, and we fell in love with it.
Little did Sika know that the washstand had brought something else along with it into her home. Something a lot less welcome.
It wasn't so much there was a change in the atmosphere of the home, but it was just strange things started happening. At first, it was just lights going off and on, or cupboard doors opening. Those kinds of things that you sort of think, maybe somebody left the light on or left the cupboard door open. But then you start to wonder because you're the only one home. But I didn't say anything at the time because I thought maybe they're going to think I was crazy. I just remember going into the kitchen and there was this huge ripping sound. And it just sounded like a huge piece of fabric being torn, but really violently torn. And there was nobody home. I was the only one there. I was petrified, and I was just like, oh my God, oh my God. I looked in the bathroom and I looked in the bedrooms, and there was just nothing to explain it, nothing. It was just very, very scary for me at the time. I think that it was probably about 2 months or so after we'd purchased the washstand that we thought that perhaps that was sort of the gateway for the spirit to come in. Why we didn't get rid of it? Because I didn't believe it. You know, something could manifest itself in a piece of furniture.
It wasn't long before the strange activity escalated, and more people experienced it.
We were sitting at the table in the kitchen, and the coffee maker just shifted out into the middle of the table and then back against the wall. And then it did it a second time, and we all were, you know, just sort of jumped up and was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, what's happening to us?
Several months after moving into their new home, Sika and Dave decided to start a family. But the joy of their baby son's arrival was short-lived. An evil atmosphere seemed to permeate the home, and Sika and Dave began turning on each other.
I was exhausted from the whole thing and exhausted from just, had a newborn baby, new child, and, a marriage that was going down the toilet. So I said to my husband then, I can't deal with this.
I am done! We are over!
The marriage over, Sika moved into her own place with her young son, but she took the washstand and her troubles with her too.
I took that washstand everywhere with me, still not really believing that it was the source of the problems.
There's a conception that spirits can only attach to a location, where in fact they can attach themselves to a person, a place, or a thing. But to them, it's something important, something that connects them back to the world of the living. If it's an angry spirit, it can just start wreaking havoc throughout the house.
This house was when a lot of activity started, a lot more than what we had had previously.
Sika's son, now aged 5, started to play with an imaginary friend.
By this time, my son had given him a name. I'd go upstairs and he'd be in his room talking, and I'd be like, who are you talking to? And he'd go, oh, it's Lenny, Mom. Like it was nothing. And then he'd go, don't you see him? He's wearing a white shirt and black pants. And I'm like, no, I don't see him. So what I did say to him is, I'm like, don't talk to him. Don't talk to him. Just, if he comes and bothers you, you come and tell me. I had bought my son this teddy bear that could tell stories. And you put a little cassette tape in and it would tell stories. And there was a couple of times where the bear just started going off, like talking, and the tape would start to play. It was like the tape would go, it would go slow, and then it would speed up. And I thought maybe it's being worn, it's breaking. So I just took the batteries out of the bear. And it came on. Even without the batteries in it, the bear came on. I didn't want anything interfering with my child, right? I mean, I'm a mom.
And once again, the evil influence of the washstand started to cause trouble in Sika's personal life.
It started to escalate when I started to date again. Anytime a new guy would come over to the house, things would start to happen.
Sika Groves had tried to escape the paranormal activity that plagued her by moving house. But she had unwittingly brought along the very thing that was causing it: her beloved washstand.
Anytime a new guy would come over to the house, things would start to happen.
What the hell?
They would say, something's touching me, something's poking me. There was a point where I felt comfortable with the guy that I was seeing staying over. The first night that he stayed over, it was maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, and I could hear a little toy cell phone that my son had going off in the hallway. And so I got up. I got up out of bed to see if my son was up. And there wasn't anything there. The noise stopped as soon as I opened the bedroom door, and my son was fast asleep in his bed. I headed back to the bedroom, and when I walked into the room, it was dark, but I could see that my boyfriend was just lying stiff in the bed and staring at the ceiling, and he was shaking. And I was like, what's wrong with you?
What's the matter?
And he's like, it's sitting on the bed, it's sitting on the bed, it's sitting on the bed, it's sitting on the bed. And he was petrified.
Something on the end of the bed.
He was so scared, he got up and he left.
Honey, where are you going?
He just, up and left. It was 4:30 in the morning, and he wouldn't stay.
Where are you going?
Oh, I was mad. I mean, I was angry just because of what had happened, right? And I was really mad. And I was like, why are you doing this? Stop doing this. You're ruining my life. I think that was really the crux of when I felt like I have to do something. My boyfriend's mother had suggested that we bring somebody in that could do feng shui. She sort of said, maybe you have bad energy flow in the house, and there's things that they can help you realign the energy. And if there's bad things there, they can, make them leave. And I'm thinking, okay, it sounds crazy enough that it just might work.
The feng shui expert immediately zeroed in on the washstand as the object that had brought the spirit into Sika's life.
And she says, you're a magnet. You attract them. And I was like, what? No, what are you talking about? I didn't attract any. She says, that's why it's here. It might have come with the furniture, but it's here because of you.
The best way to remove a spirit from a house When you're dealing with an object, maybe an antique that you have purchased somewhere, it would be a good idea to get rid of that antique, not to give to someone else that you don't like, but to get rid of the object altogether. And that way you're getting rid of the attachment to that object, whether you bury it, some people want to burn it, but just get rid of it altogether. It's just a better way to do it.
What are we gonna read today? What are you gonna read to me?
Only then did things get back to normal.
It just says the horse sticking.
My son wasn't seeing him anymore, and things just weren't happening. For me, mentally, it made a big difference.
Not every spirit can be gotten rid of so easily. In some cases, a paranormal entity can spread like an infection from one person to another, causing terror and chaos in its path.
I've always had an interest in the paranormal, but you know, I never ever thought that I'd ever experience one.
It all started when Susan Hayes was having coffee at her friend's house. There she experienced something chilling.
I could sense this entity, and it would start out like a coldness in the bottom of my foot, like actually like it was entering my body. And it would keep coming, creeping up my leg, and I would just close my eyes and recite the Lord's Prayer over and over again. Our Father art in heaven, and I kept redoing it, and it would just kind of go away again.
Susan's friend told her she too had begun to experience strange things. And they all started when she let a mutual friend rent a room in her house.
There was a girl that they let stay for a few weeks. She was in between residences, and she had went in there one night and heard her chanting.
Susan Hayes had experienced strange sensations while at her friend's house. But that wasn't the only weird thing going on there.
There was a girl that they let stay for a few weeks. She was in between residences, and she had went in there one night and heard her chanting. She peeked in the room, and she was doing some type of a ritual on the floor. Then she just suddenly moved out about a few weeks later.
When you're dealing with ceremony and rituals, depending on the intention of that ceremony, if your intention is to be ill-willed or to just open the door to anything, you can invite anything into the house, even evil spirits, and most likely the people you don't want to come into that room.
Susan and her friend decided to cleanse the house of whatever entity the boarder had ushered in.
Said, the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me, and his words was in my tongue.
We just kind of went online to try to find out what we should do. So we just kind of tried to handle it ourselves initially, but it was honestly a big mistake. So as soon as we started reading the Bible and smudging, the little wooden case just slid right across the front of us.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come.
Needless to say, we kind of screamed and ran out the door. It terrified us quite a bit. I knew that she had summoned something into their home and they had only tried to help her, so I was very upset. About 2 weeks after, my friend's family just decided to move. They just had had enough and they decided not to try to fight it. I was just in my room, just relaxing, watching TV, and all of a sudden I felt that cold, horrible, evil sensation again that I felt over at my friend's house.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
And I immediately knew it was there. I just knew. And I was terrified.
It seemed that the entity from her friend's house had now attached itself to Susan. Soon, the paranormal activity got worse.
There would be scratching in the walls you could hear. Another time I could hear crashing up in the attic. So it would just do anything it could just to disturb you in the middle of the night. It was antagonizing me so badly that I honestly thought I was going to lose my mind. I had just bought in the house, so I was not going to move out. So I just, I was determined to get rid of this thing.
Susan knew she had to call in an expert. She contacted paranormal investigator Michelle DeRoche for help.
When Sue sent me an email, I immediately felt drawn to her. Right off the bat, I could feel the desperation in it.
When I reached out to Michelle, I just gave her a vague message. I think we have a ghost problem.
Hi.
Michelle brought along a friend who was a psychic to help with the investigation.
This is Tyler.
Tyler. He walked into my house and my cat went right to him, which was unusual in itself because my cat always hid from company. The cat starts meowing at him like, meow, meow. And he starts answering it. He's like, oh, thank you. And I'm like looking like, what? He says, oh, I can communicate with animals. And then the cat kept beckoning Tyler to follow. And, you're just like, what? And the cat showed him where the same woman who had done the ritual at the other house had hidden things in my home as well.
While visiting Susan's house, her friend's lodger had put an evil hex on Susan, too.
Found small pieces of mirror throughout the house, which I guess I found afterwards can act as a portal or an entry place into my home. We had found jars of urine hidden up in the rafters as well. From what I gather, that was a way that she could kind of hold claim to my home.
A lot of that has to do more with the occult, you know, working around the black arts. They will leave things like that on the premises, and they will take something out of the home. It's like an exchange almost.
Terrified of what malevolent entities the hidden objects were bringing into her home, Susan decided to get it cleansed.
He basically did a smudging ceremony, you know, where he would come in with just a big sage smudge stick.
Michelle and the psychic were unable to completely remove the spirit in one session, so they gave Susan instructions on how to keep it at bay until they could return to remove it for good.
Michelle instructed me to just to be very diligent, try to smudge daily. She gave me some exercises to do, like salt baths, stuff like that, so that it personally couldn't infest me, because it certainly did try all the time.
And we taught her basically how to kind of keep her environment calm.
Michelle had calmed the activity in Susan's house, but in doing so, she had provoked a spirit that was not yet finished with her or her family. Paranormal investigator Michelle DeRoche had taken the first steps toward ridding Susan Hay's home of sinister forces. But before she could return to finish the job, she had no idea the evil would infect a new victim much closer to home.
I was 14 years old when she started doing the investigations. I didn't believe in much of anything until things started happening to me.
I could hear her calling my name.
I can't see!
I went over to her room and I said, "What's wrong?" She goes, "I can't see." I'm like, "What do you mean you can't see?" She goes, "I can't see."
Mom, come here, I can't see! What's going on?
I can't see, Mom.
Nothing? No, I can't see anything.
Like, I couldn't make out shapes. I couldn't make out anything other than the fact that I could tell, you know, the sun was out. I could tell that it was a little bit lighter of a darkness than, you know, complete pitch black.
Okay. All right.
It really isn't uncommon for a medium who has cast out an evil spirit to have that evil spirit come back in some way or form and try to get revenge, because that spirit will not be happy that it has been forced to move on.
Brought her in, and he's like, "Her eyes look healthy." I don't even know what to say, but let's get all the tests done and let's see what's going on. They took pictures of the inside of her eyes. Everything was healthy. We even had her see a psychologist. So we explored everything, mental, physical. Nobody had any answers for us.
I was really worried and I didn't think it would come back. I couldn't go to school. I missed my whole first semester.
It's your job to protect them. It's your job to make sure bad things don't happen to them. It was terrible, just terrible time in that respect.
Unable to find a medical cause, Michelle's doctor had another theory.
He said, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Could you maybe have worked on something recently that might have caused this? It never occurred to me. It never occurred to me. I have been working professionally with the paranormal probably for the last, I would say, 12 years. Never in a million years did I think that it would happen in my home.
Michelle quickly organized a seance at her home to contact whatever had taken away her daughter's sight.
It was the same being. We were set to go back, and we were going to finish the job. And I said, did you do this?
Did you do this? Did you take my daughter's sight?
All it said was, stay away. I said, fix this. And I'll stay away. I won't go back.
If you leave her alone, I'll leave you alone.
Michelle had offered a deal. If the spirit returned her daughter's sight, she would not return to Susan's house to cleanse it once and for all.
I gave my eyes a good rub, and it was like, it was never a problem in the first place. It was the weirdest, strangest thing. It just came back. I was like, Mom, my eyes they're working. I can see.
Mom, I can see.
She goes, hey, I can see. I'm like, wow.
Mom!
Are you serious? I can see. Oh, that's amazing.
And I stayed true to my word. I never returned. Never returned.
And Susan Hayes, using the techniques Michelle taught her, has kept the evil at bay ever since.
Story number 16, possession of Trish.
I started having nightmares in the year 2000 about a house that made me feel so much anxiety I would wake up crying. I couldn't see the outside of the house. I don't recognize the house. But I was seeing a little girl wandering around, and I was seeing people who were hung. But I wasn't sure what it had to do with anything. I had no clue. I had the nightmares 2 or 3 times a week for about 6 months. It scared me. I started seeing a counselor over those nightmares.
6 months after her nightmares began, Rose and her daughter Trish moved, renting a beautiful, historic home.
It was a very large house with 5 bedrooms, probably over 100 years old. with a huge backyard that led right out to the Detroit River. We just walked in the door, Trish and I. We knew right then what we'd done. We were wrong. Trish looked at me and said, "Mom, we shouldn't be here." And I said, "I know."
The feeling was just a lot of anxiety, sorrow, just sadness. And I couldn't explain why.
From the moment we got into that house and we stepped in the door and realized that this is the house from my dreams, we were feeling this anxiety. I wanted to pack everything up and just leave right away. But there was nothing we could do. We couldn't leave. We just spent every penny we had to get in there.
We felt stuck. We weren't sure how we were going to get out, but we didn't want to be there.
Despite their fears, Rose and Trish took a look around.
We did a walkthrough of the house, got to the top floor, which was the attic. I just had an intense feeling of sadness come over me. At that point, I dropped to my knees and I started to cry, and I couldn't stop. Couldn't explain why I felt that way.
Trish started crying, and she couldn't stop. She barely knew who she was.
Uneasy, but penniless and unable to leave, Rose and Trish decided to stick together in the place they felt safest.
The anxiety was throughout the whole house, but we stayed on the main floor, which, like in my dreams, that was the only place we were safe. And that is exactly where we slept, together.
Nothing could have prepared them for what happened on their first night.
There was screams, there was stomping, there was doors slamming. Shadows coming down the stairs. You'd hear the footsteps. It was so scary. I tried to stay away from the upstairs, tried to keep her down.
Despite the shadows and the noises, Trish found herself drawn to the attic.
I'd see a little girl upstairs in the attic. She looked to be 5 or 6 years old, wearing a white nightgown. I would always find her upstairs in the closet. She looked like a real person. I knew she was a ghost.
As soon as she'd go missing, I would find Trish upstairs. She would be bringing anything that a child wanted to this little girl. But I couldn't see her at all.
She was just lonely. She wanted someone to keep her company. So I would bring her toys a few times a day.
Sometimes a spirit, in its attempt to reconnect with the world of the living, will use some sort of trickery and make it seem like it is your friend. Spirits look for the easiest targets. Children, they want easy prey, someone they can easily take over and control, furthering its agenda and getting more of a hold on you.
I tried to keep her from going to see that little girl. It was an obsession.
As well as the little girl, there were other, more evil manifestations lurking around the house.
I would see black people hanging from the rafters, like on a noose.
There's dead bodies hanging.
She was telling me, "They're right there, Mother. They're right there." And I couldn't see them. It was bad.
As the days passed, Trish's personality drastically changed.
Trish was doing really strange things. She was in a daze. It was like she was not even there. I couldn't let her do anything in the house. She'd put something on the stove and leave it there, walk away. She didn't know who she was.
I had gone weeks without sleeping, without eating. I couldn't. I wasn't tired. None of it was affecting me. I do feel as though something in the house was taking me over. It was probably about 3 in the morning. I felt drawn to the young girl in the attic again. I couldn't figure out why. Almost like I had no control as to what I was doing.
I was worried about Trish going up and talking to the ghost child. I felt this little girl was more of a threat. I was afraid that she would completely take over her and there would be nothing left of my daughter. I was so scared that my child would never be the same.
Trish's condition continued to worsen.
There was times when she wanted out of the house. "Mom, we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here." I said, "Yeah, we gotta get out." And I was searching for a place. There's other times when she would say, "We're not going anywhere. We're staying right here. We're not leaving."
We're not leaving! Not!
That's when I knew it wasn't her. Because I know when she was in her normal self, she wanted out.
A spirit can affect a person in many different ways. They may stop eating, they may have trouble sleeping, they may start engaging in self-destructive activities, they lose themselves. A spirit doesn't possess a person for good intentions. They are taking over this person's body, their personality, and I don't consider that good in any way.
Protective of her daughter, Rose desperately searched for a connection between the new house and Trish's disturbing behavior.
Started doing a bit of research and found out they had caught some people who were involved with the Underground Railroad coming across and hung them on Canadian side, behind our house.
Then Rose made another horrifying discovery about the girl Trish kept seeing in the attic.
We couldn't understand why a little girl would be involved in this, and found out that a preacher had gotten his daughter pregnant, and he drowned that child behind our house in the river. That was in 1840, and that's what worried me. I didn't want this child to take her over, to go down to the river and do what happened to her. I didn't want my daughter to drown.
Terrified her daughter would be lured to the river, Rose kept a vigil over her for weeks, until one fateful night.
I'd waited for my mother to fall asleep. And I walked in the pitch black down to the Detroit River, drawn there with this little girl.
Come with me.
Trish Sterling had been possessed by the spirit of a little girl who was leading her toward the icy water of the Detroit River. Trish's mother had no idea she had gone.
I walked in the pitch black down to the Detroit River, drawn there with this little girl.
Come with me. Follow me.
It was like somebody else was using my body. almost like I had no control as to what I was doing.
I had woken up and she was gone. I searched for her all over the house. Went through all the rooms, and I panicked.
Rose was terrified her worst fear had come true.
Right away, I thought about the river.
I can't recall why, but I was in the water. I can't recall why I was in the water, but I ended up back at the house. My mother found me.
She was soaked. She was soaked from head to toe. She said, I went into the river. I knew it was spirits. I knew that the spirits had taken control of her. She said that the little girl took her down there, that she wanted to go to the river. I was just so glad that she was still alive.
She was very upset. My mother was very upset when she'd found me in the basement and knew I had gone down to the river, because that was her worst fear.
I knew I had to take her to the hospital. I knew I had to get her out of that house before it killed her. She was in the hospital for about a week.
Whatever had a hold of me, I had trouble getting rid of it. It still followed me. It scared me. That house scared me. I didn't want to go back.
While Trish recovered from the traumatic experience in hospital, Rose packed up and moved out.
When my mother told me she'd found us a place, I was obviously very thankful. Living in that house was basically living a nightmare.
Eventually, Trish was able to shake off any lingering traces of the presence that had possessed her.
After everything I had gone through, I didn't want to ever experience that again.
When ghosts physically attack the living, victims typically feel themselves being squeezed or hugged. But sometimes, the attacks can be even more violent and leave scars that never heal.
Ed's Tormentor, story number 6.
I was in my 20s, and I was in bed. We were sleeping, and all of a sudden I felt real heavy in the chest. And I woke my husband up and I said, "Get it off my chest. I can't breathe."
Honey, what's going on?
And he said, "There's nothing there." And I said, "There is. I can't breathe." It lasted about 10 minutes. I felt like I was being choked.
Something was attacking me.
I was scared, you know. Nothing like that had ever happened before. And the next day, I had bruises on my neck. They were like finger marks.
Karen didn't know what to make of the incident, but it left her with an uneasy feeling.
Next day, I got flowers. It was like for a funeral.
A few days later, with her husband away for work, Karen had her next strange encounter.
I saw a man in a blue shirt. I didn't recognize him at all. I didn't see his face clear. I always saw him at the bottom of the bed. I was being watched. I told him to stop, to go away. You're not welcome here. Go away. But he didn't. I couldn't count the number of times that I saw him.
But one night, the apparition did more than just watch.
I just felt myself being pulled down, and then he would assault me.
Karen Wright had been attacked in her bed by a spirit.
And it was every night. He would assault me in some way or another, and then he'd rape me. It got to the point where I was afraid to go to bed at night.
I have, in fact, heard of spirits sexually assaulting or having sex with the living. I had 2 cases personally where that happened. One of those cases went on for almost 20 years.
Eventually, the attack subsided, giving Karen some relief.
I wasn't being attacked so much, but it took quite a while before it stopped there.
In the following years, Karen and her husband had a son, Ed. With the nighttime attacks having all but stopped, Karen thought her torment was over. But the worst was yet to come.
I didn't know it would affect them. I thought it was just me.
The first sign of trouble came when the couple tried to have their baby christened. Now an adult, Ed feels it was no coincidence.
The night before I was supposed to be baptized, the church had burnt down, so I didn't go the next morning, of course.
From his earliest memories, Ed recalls being tormented by evil spirits.
From age 3 and up, it's a piece of cake remembering almost everything, especially all the horrible stuff. I call him the tormentor. Always come out of the closet, try to scare the hell out of me, come out from underneath the bed or in front of the bed. Or he'd come from a dark corner, got a long face, spiked kind of tongue, horns on top of the head, black shiny skin. That's the tormentor. If he didn't come out, it would be spiders. And it would be the walls, the ceiling, the floors, the bed, everything covered in spiders. And even if I tried to scream, it felt like spiders were coming out of my mouth. So it was a total nightmare city. Mom tried to blame it off as it's my imagination, trying to calm me down, not to freak me out. I knew it was something different.
I wasn't too shocked because, I thought he was having something like I was having. I told him not to worry about it.
I barely didn't get much sleep when I was a kid, and my parents did what most parents do, is they took me in and had me checked out, and none of that made a difference, but I just had to kind of play along so they wouldn't think I'm crazy or I wouldn't get locked up in a loony bin.
The family was desperate to move out, but finances were a problem. Eventually, they saved enough to get a new home. But whatever was tormenting them had no intention of letting them go so easily.
This thing followed us there as well. It got worse in the teenage years. Writing appeared on the wall. Just telling me to kill other people, kill myself, ways of killing myself. I just had to keep putting all that stuff out of my memory.
I felt bad for him. I just told him it was okay. You know, nothing bad is gonna happen to you.
The torment continued for 10 more years, until finally, Karen and Ed sought outside help.
We have a friend who belongs to a paranormal group. It was through him that we got this shaman.
They had us basically sit in a chair like this. They put a piece of cloth underneath the chair, and then he used like a sea salt and an eagle's feather, and they just brush down your body. They fold up the doll into like a little totem and just say that you give all your evil spirits and energy to this doll. And then they're supposed to go and burn it. They call it the release place. The doll burns completely, you're out of trouble. And sure enough, the next day they went to the burn site. My doll didn't burn completely.
After a few months' respite, the torment and the man returned.
He disappeared for quite a while. I thought it was finished, it was over with. But there he was. He's back.
Fearing for his mother's safety, Ed took matters into his own hands.
Come and get me! Come!
I challenged it and told it that you want to attack somebody, leave Mom alone, because Mom's in her 70s. So I said, leave Mom alone. Bring it on. I'm open for it. If you want to attack somebody, you can come and attack me.
To protect his mother from the evil spirits that had tormented her for years, Ed Wright challenged them to come after him.
Bring it on. I'm open for it. If you want to attack somebody, you can come and attack me.
It was an ultimatum he'd live to regret.
He was being attacked, scratched.
My back is covered. My ribs, my stomach, my chest. They take months, sometimes years to heal up. We had a nurse practitioner. She measured my arms and the scratches, and she said there's no way you could have made those scratches yourself on your back. The body ain't meant to bend that way, so there's no way it could have been you. It's always in threes every time it happens. The pain is unbelievable that goes with it. You can't scream, you can't do nothing.
The theory is when you get 3 scratches, because they usually come in threes, that it is the entity's way of mocking the Trinity. It's a matter of making you afraid and keeping you afraid so you don't have the will to fight back.
I can be in bed, I could be in Mom's room, I could be anywhere.
I've known Edwin and Karen for about 5 years. He's a kind, gentle soul, and we see him all the time. He was in my yard, and he dropped right to his knees.
We were talking away, and then they saw my leg get red. They saw the scratches come, and then they just saw the blood just start gushing down the one leg.
He had 3 fresh scratches on his leg, deep red scratches. I go, what was that? And he goes, it got me again. And I go, what do you mean? And he's like, they're after me again. These demons. It was really weird. You'd have to see it to believe it.
And the pizza man saw it too.
He saw the skin rip open, 3 on each side, and he's just like, okay, let me get out of here, please.
To this day, Ed is still being attacked by his tormentor.
Some people think you're crazy, you know, sometimes. I worry about Ed because he just can't take it anymore.
Most frightening thing for me is the scratches on the body, and if they're gonna get worse, or if it's gonna even be taken to another level. Whatever has been following me around, there's gonna be no end to this.
Ed and Karen are currently searching for someone who can rid Ed of his tormentor once and for all.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share to keep fascinating content coming here at Nightmare Nexus.